Welcome back, folks, to another exciting edition of Let's Play Tyranny. As always, I'm your host, J Square John Jeremy, and last we left off, we had finished speaking with Tunon the Adjudicator, who has given us a couple of new assignments, but primarily our task is clear. Find guilt between Graven Ash and the Voices of Narat, who are currently in the midst of a civil war and are breaking Kyros' peace. Now, we have here in front of us a group of Fatebinders here, my fellow Fatebinders, and I'd like to speak with them and learn more about them. Let's go from left to right here. We've got Fatebinder Nunoval here. Let's go and talk to him first.
I will not pretend to understand the strategic decisions you have made, but they are yours all the same.
The Fatebinder of War claps you with excessive strength on the back, a greeting and a warning both.
Even so, I am curious about your travels in the tiers. Word has reached me regarding your negotiation tactics at Apex. I must admit, I'm impressed you made any headway with the Southern wretches. If they are open to reason, it would seem they aren't as ignorant as the Archon of War would have us believe. Come, let us speak freely.
How were you singled out to become a Fatebinder?
I cannot speak for the other Fatebinders, but I joined the court when I was yet still a boy and impetuous beyond reason. I had been imprisoned with a death sentence for the crime of desecrating corpses.
He laughs, hard and hearty.
It was nothing so exciting as you're no doubt imagining. I was merely burning corpses that awaited burial. Before the local authority could see me to the gallows, the Adjudicator claimed me a great talent waiting to be realized, needing only to be steered.
Why burn the bodies?
Corpses piling in the streets spread plague faster than the filthiest of rats. I was but 10 and a weak fighter. I did what I could for my homeland.
Why was it a crime?
There was a time when even the Northmen were of superstitious stock. A time before Kyros brought reason to the realms. The people of my city believed that, without proper rites, I was cheating our fallen warriors from returning to the land.
It's a good thing Tunon spared you.
As I have said, the Adjudicator saw within me something of rare value, as is true for us all. You as well were chosen for our great court, for which I am grateful. As the Fatebinder of War, I rely heavily on your talents.
I'm curious about Tunon's masks.
They can be rather unsettling, can't they? Even to one such as me. But I can assure you, the innocent need not fear their objective, emotionless gaze. What of the Adjudicator's masks specifically would you like to know?
I want to know about the Silent Face.
The Silent Face is the face that Tunon shows to us now, and for that we are fortunate beyond belief. The Silent Face is a patient face, a face for listening as Tunon presides over all matters brought to the court, taking great pains to ensure all sides of an issue are heard.
I want to know more about the Face of Resolve.
Tunon's last known dawning of the Face of Resolve was the moment he judged and called ruin to half the districts in the bastard city. Since then, he has ruled our northern tier justly, calmly, and with efficient diplomacy.
I want to know about the face that is no more.
Tunon is said to have worn a third mask in aeons past. I have heard rumor that the face displeased Kyros, and was thus destroyed, as happens to all persons and objects that displease our Overlord.
Have you ever seen Tunon change his masks?
In the way that you or I would change our raiment? No, not as such. And yet I have seen the masks shift. They switch without the Adjudicator or anyone so much as laying a hand on them. It's not something you can watch unfold. After a time, you merely realize it has already happened.
Could you remind me of the history and origin of the Fatebinders?
The seasoned warrior rubs a finger against the line of his stubble across his cheek. We are a relatively young order, though we have spanned these past 2 centuries. While the voices of Narat and Graven Ash need armies to execute their will, Tunon wields but a modest court of vassals. We exist as the extension of his law. There is no place in all of Taratus beyond our judgment.
Tell me more about Kyros' armies, our allies.
Ah, yes. With friends like these, our work is often self-explanatory. Were you asking about the Scarlet Chorus or the Disfavored?
The Scarlet Chorus.
Scarlet Chorus soldiers hail from every corner of every realm. As the chorus marches, it conscripts indiscriminately from those it has conquered to replenish its ranks. There is no continuity of command in the chorus. Nerat allows, encourages even, the strong to challenge their leaders. But the chorus has numbers, and brute force is almost always a viable solution, much as Rogalus insists otherwise. Besides, the Scarlet Chorus draws strength from the multitudes it swallows. Its blood chanters have taken knowledge from the various tiers' mystics, and many of the chorus's best soldiers were grown here, in the south.
The Disfavored.
The Disfavored are the iron tip of Kyros' great phalanx, armed with the best weapons, the most comprehensive training, and led by the brilliant Graven Ash. The Disfavored have no equals in open battle. The Legion has a saying, Graven Ash protects, and it's no empty boast. The Archon of War is able to lend his will and strength to his soldiers and give them endurance beyond human limits. I have a great respect for the Disfavored, but I know where I stand with them. They are a very close-knit band, all of them from northern families, many of them related to each other.
Nunaval sighs, his smile wistful.
But considering our role in the great hierarchy, I can't fault General Ash for being selective.
I've claimed the spire at Vendrian's Well.
So the court's whispers are true.
The Fatebinder rubs his fingers along the underside of his chin, pondering his thoughts with great weight. After a moment, he offers you a wistful sort of smile.
Someday, I would like to witness for myself this tower that has risen above the realms like a blade thrust into the sky.
I would hear of your past victories in the war, or of recent events.
Have you not tired of my tales, John Jeremy? I do admit I never tire of telling them.
He laughs, hearty and deep.
Very well then, let me champion the feats of my conquest. Let the glory of Kyros' reign fall on any ears that would hear of it. Certainly, the highest honor bestowed upon me was the right of proclamation. When Kyros decided to punish the Disfavored for their refusal to sally forth and finish off the unbroken of Stalwart, I was chosen to read the Edict of Storms. Those killing winds of dust, grit, and sword will rage across fallen Stalwart until the ruling regions are broken. They call the realm Blade Grave these days. If you ever visit, you'll no doubt realize why.
Nunaval let out a chuckle.
Evidently, one or more of the regions persist in living.
Farewell. How about Fatebinder Callio?
Regards, John Jeremy. You look as if you need something.
Callio tips her head to one side, a glimmer of curiosity in her dark, discerning eyes.
What can I do for you?
Callio touches a gentle hand to your shoulder. Has anything happened while I was away?
There have been whispers that Cairn grew disloyal to Graven Ash's command during the campaign in Azure. I took up the mantle of investigation near Plainsgate, and, judging the rumors to be true, dispatched Cairn by proclaiming Kyros' Edict of Stone. The very earth turned against the traitor's Archon as the region split asunder in righteous judgment.
You seem to know much of my actions. Have you been spying on me?
Don't act so surprised. It's my duty to ensure that those who operate under the Adjudicator's name adhere to the spirit of his law, if not the very letter.
Of course. I've nothing to hide.
So you say, but I have to weigh all evidence presented before me with an objective eye. Assume you are being watched, Fatebinder, but don't concern yourself. That's no more than any citizen of the Empire can expect.
How have you occupied your time in the bastard city?
Tunon sends me on assignments here and there.
I settle disputes between the locals when the adjudicator is otherwise occupied. She smirks. Everything from trade disagreements to pushing chorus squatters out of basements. Real rewarding work. She waves it off. The glory of war is not an honor reserved for the likes of us. We're the fish swimming in Tunan's wake, picking up scraps along the way. We're rather large and imposing compared to the bottom feeders of the tiers, but fish all the same. I'd like to know more about Tunan. Tunan is our Overlord's fair and exacting adjudicator. He speaks with the voice of Kyros' law, and his word is judgment. All of this and more you can learn by asking him yourself. Go on. Or does he intimidate you still? She chuckles softly. I jest, of course. I have some concerns about the war. You are free to share them in my confidence. She leans in closer. Our armies squabble at each other's throats. Divided, we cannot win. I'm less concerned about the armies than the Archons themselves. There can be no order when mountains collide. Who would you see as champion? Neither. They're both at fault, and equally inept. Her mood darkens. And then who would lead our advances, or be left to deliver Kyros' peace? Would you wear this responsibility as a crown upon your head? You may find it a heavy burden to bear. You misunderstand my intent. The Fatebinder studies you with a knowing eye. Do I? Farewell. Interesting. I have to watch out for you. Fatebinder Rogalis. Fatebinder, you return. Rogalis looks you up and down with an inscrutable expression. You look as if you have questions for me to untangle. Ask. I am feeling generous. Tell me about some of the past Archons. No one is entirely sure how many Archons Kyros has killed, but I would guess it numbers several dozen or more, based on the various histories I've been able to piece together. Where did you study when you were younger? I've been a ward of the court for as long as I've been aware. As a child, I demonstrated wholly perfect recall, and I absorbed all that Tunan and my tutors had to offer. I remember hating all the lectures and wishing I could learn at my pace. Funny how I envied the sages of the tiers, how they could spend their whole lives reading and never exhaust their library. Of course, now the Vellum Citadel is nothing more than a burning waste. What do you think about the other Fatebinders? You'll need to be more specific than that, I'm afraid. There is, on last count, slightly more than a handful of us. What's your opinion of the Fatebinder of War? Nunavol's keen, brash, and a hardy braggart with a fondness for bloodshed. He can be utterly unbearable at times. His justice is fair, even if he skews toward rather exacting and uncompromising punishments at times. What is your opinion of the Fatebinder of Balance? Callio is the finest among us. Her discernment is beyond reproach, and she is perhaps Tunan's favorite. She's a mind for suspicion and observation that makes others uneasy. We who operate within the confines of the law have nothing to fear, of course. Well, I kinda do. What's your opinion of me? Whatever it may have been, it is reduced of late. Rogalis pierces you with a severe look. No matter why you lent your favor to the southern barbarians, it has cast you in the darkest suspicion. Be advised, Fatebinder, your objectivity is in question. We will be watching. Can you tell me about the old walls and the Bane? With which should I start? Tell me about the old walls. We know little enough about the ancient structures, say that they predate all historical record. The forbidding ruins crisscross the tiers and north alike centuries before we raised our cities. The only one old enough to guess is likely Kyros. Tell me about the Bane.
The Bane are found in the old walls, but much of their defining qualities still escape me. They are creatures of smoke, claw, and fang. If you find yourself unfortunate enough to fight one, remember that spells are effective against them, but grab the attention of others lurking near.
I'd like to know more about the tiers.
The political entities of the tiers are essentially split between the Bastard Tier, the Younger Realms, and the Free Cities. Of which would you like to know?
What can you tell me about the Bastard Tier?
The Bastard Tier is the most northern of the tiers and was the first to bow to Kyros' reign. Though the knee they bent fell unwillingly. Kyros had his eye on the Bastard Tier for many years before he marched on her capital city. This is the hub of trade and commerce. Claim the markets, and the people will follow.
I'm curious to know more about the Younger Realms.
The Younger Realms sprawl the middle and southernmost tiers and can be cataloged as follows: Apex, Azure, Haven, and Stalwart. Azure was renowned for its exceptionally fertile land, which fed the whole of the tiers. That was before Kyros' Edict of Stone blighted the land. Stalwart is also worth mention, for it comprises the whole of the southernmost tier, and proves the toughest and most defensible of the realms. It is often said the other realms will not fall while Stalwart yet stands. The local army wages bitter war against the disfavored, though the Edict of Storms has cut off the best of their defenses. It is only a matter of time before Stalwart falls.
I would like to hear about the Free Cities.
There are 3 free cities remaining: Last Harbor, Spiral's Maw, and Barris and Chains. The first and strongest of the free cities was the Setting Sun, which Kyros crushed in 429 with the Edict of Tumult. After that, the remaining free cities were quick to surrender.
I want to talk about the Sages.
I will not speak of the Sages. They are no better than charlatans and cons, wholly selfish in their ill pursuit to hoard all knowledge from others. They are self-blinded by their own deceptions and clever manipulations. They alone cause their own undoing and are solely to blame for the burning library, one of the most grievous of wrongs in the known histories, for which they can never be forgiven. Farewell.
Okay. Why don't we, before we leave, go ahead and speak to our Scarlet Chorus and disfavored friends, or former friends as it were.
I'd emulate you right where you stand if it weren't for Tunon breathing down our necks.
He ignores you with a stern and distant expression.
Fatebinder, you're no stranger to Tunon's court, but I prefer to spend as little time here as possible. In spite of these closed walls, I feel strangely exposed.
He glances up at Tunon.
If you're ever feeling generous, feel free to send a few healthy oathbreakers to the voices. We can always use fodder for the front lines, only if it doesn't cause too many problems with your new alliance. You'll make our time in the tiers an interesting one, won't you?
He smiles for an uncomfortably long time.
Of course you will.
How about our friends over in the disfavored? See what they have to say. Court officer?
None of these painted sycophants understood the value of Kyros' law.
Fatebinder, welcome back to Tunon's court.
Sevius says,
I am duty-bound to remain civil to you in this vaunted court, but don't push it, traitor.
Aurora avoids making any eye contact with you, but instead carries on speaking with her company. Albatronus. Fatebinder. The lieutenant gives you a curt nod.
I'm ill at ease in this polished hall, but I admit that it is a reprieve from the battlefields and training grounds. If Ash needs me to stay here and represent his interests throughout the occupation, then I'll be up to the task.
Very good. Alright. I don't think there's anybody else left for us to talk to. Nope. Onwards then. Oh, wait, there is unspent talent points, though, we can still use. Sure, why not? Let's see here now.
Verse needs to grab some things. Verse, go ahead and why don't you work on your wits. And then Verse, go ahead and... Ooh, that's good. So our current primary quests are a trial of Archons, evidence against Graven Ash, evidence against Voices in the Rot. During the conquest, Graven Ash sent Cairn to destroy Edring Fort in the realm of Apex. The destruction cost the Scarlet Chorus many potential recruits. During the conquest, Scarlet Chorus recruits were permitted to engage in a Tearsman festival, colluding with the enemy during a time of war. Didn't we choose to do that, though? We have Forging an Alliance. We need to speak with Tarkus Ari. And then Stirring Visions. We need to investigate the spires. Find a way to the Lethian's Crossing Spire. Got it. I guess we'll go ahead and go back to Ascension Hall and talk with Tarkus Ari. Oh?
Welcome back, kid. Amusing as it would have been to watch the edict drop, I guess I'm glad you lived.
Bled Mark, Archon of Shadows, rouses from a faraway stare, turning to face you with a wry smile. Though he stands still, he seems to sift in and out of the shadows that surround him.
But to draw blood from your allies.
The Archon flashes his teeth, flat and pearly white. A sharp contrast from the shadowed depth of his face. He folds his arm across his chest, hands resting against the bandolier of blades that span his waist. The wording of the edict was clear. They were committing fatal negligence against each other by not cooperating. I didn't write Kyros' rule. I just enforced it.
True enough. The disfavored in the Scarlet Chorus brought about their own demise. Those that lived should be thanking you for your mercy. What has me curious is your use of the Tearsman, the Oathbreakers of all people. You're content to cut down your allies, yet spare your enemy. Some would consider it an unusual choice.
I already explained this to the Adjudicator. If I did anything illegal, he would have sentenced me. Bled Mark narrows his gaze, examining you from head to toe.
Before you go and conspire with the locals too much, you and I need to have a chat.
I'm listening.
Everyone's keeping an eye on you, because you did something nobody has done before. Got a guess as to what that might be?
I'm the first Fatebinder to engage in war against an ally soldiers. Probably not the best idea to answer with that. First Fatebinder to proclaim 2 edicts. First to resolve an edict before its consequences came to pass. First Fatebinder to awaken a spire of the old walls. First person to take an evasive stance against your rhetorical questions. Well, it doesn't appear that anybody else has awakened a spire of the old walls in some time, if ever, so we'll go with that one. I'm the first Fatebinder to awaken a spire of the old walls.
You're not wrong. That was definitely a shock. But I doubt it's the sole reason you've made the tears tremble. Proclaiming an edict isn't new. Neither is surviving or resolving the commandments of an edict. But you're the first to proclaim and resolved the very same edict, and it didn't kill you. In one fell swoop, you survived your second edict, resolved the very one you had proclaimed, and awoke an arcane structure that had slept for several centuries.
Interesting. All of these are pretty aggressive. And now I go on your short list of people who stand out as potential problems.
More or less. Mostly more.
He offers you a dangerous grin. Gained average favor with that comment. We have 2 favor with him. That's good.
I don't care what you do with the information, but you should know the danger you're in now that you've put yourself on the map. If you want to drum up more support from the Tiersmen, being the binder that broke the Overlord's edict is a good opener for diplomacy. Not saying trusting them is the best course of action, but it's a better strategy than watching Ash and the Voices muck around without consequence.
Thanks for the advice. The Archon of Shadows shrugs to you in farewell, but his golden eyes are alight with interest as he watches you. Can we talk to him still?
How about a little breathing room, kid?
I guess not. Onwards then. We'll go ahead and go back to the world map. Let's make our way back over to Vendrian's Well and the Mountain Spire, specifically Ascension Hall. We'll go back and talk with Tarkus before we move on to the next area. Alright, let's see now. These are all the same. That's the same. Here's Tarkus. Fatebinder! Welcome back! Ari smiles and bows. Our patrols have been chasing off stragglers from the valley, but otherwise, Vendrian's Well is almost quiet for the first time in ages. Considering what we've been through, it's a much-needed lull in violence. Fatebinder. Barrack takes you aside and speaks low. Must we suffer these fools and play their game of disobedience much longer? Because we have Subterfuge 43, we can talk with Barrack in this way. I'm using these Southerners to serve our interests alone. Won't you play along for a time? Perhaps you are more shrewd than I credited. When this war is over, I'll make sure to tell the great general how you've won your greatest battle through cooperation. The Archon may even learn a thing or two. Barrack nods with respect. I hope you two are finished with your palaver on the side. Ari clears her throat. We need to use this time to shore up our strength. If either of the Archons decided to attack us in earnest, we wouldn't last long. So now is the time to scrounge up whatever resources we can muster. You don't need resources. You need allies. In other words, a gang. Verse nods. You can win battles with a tightly knit group, but you need a gang to win a war. She blinks. With the other regions of the tiers beset by Kyros' forces, we've all been spread too thin to help one another. We've long hoped to inspire others to rally to our cause, but after a while I just assumed no one was coming. Those most eager to resist Kyros are mostly all dead, killed in the early years of the fighting. What's left are the hard-to-kill ninny-shitters like me and Ari, and the folks who are late coming to their senses. A lot of the recent recruits to the Vendrian God have been young adults not quite old enough to have made the mustering call when Kyros' forces first came to the tiers. We tried to assemble a united front at the Gates of Judgment, but our enemies were too strong, as you well remember. Her expression twists with bitterness, though she attempts to hide it. The disfavored have us outclassed, and the Scarlet Chorus outnumber us by tens of thousands, yet we'll have no lasting peace while they infest the tiers. What do you propose? We came to invade. The generals took it for granted that the tiersmen could never work together. If you want to demoralize the Archons, prove them wrong. I see your education in the court wasn't wasted. You propose we make an example of ourselves. If we could get the regions together and cooperating, there's little we couldn't accomplish. She mutters to herself in thought. You're right. Historically, it hasn't been done. But now that folks have seen the price of not taking the threat of Kyros seriously... A coalition, then. Her face warms with a smile as the idea takes root. It's madness, but it has potential. We won't know if we never try, right? You've already proven yourself better at organizing us than the queens and regents who couldn't defend the tiers at our full strength. But where to start? I can lead the Vendrian Guard from here, but we're in no position to branch out into the rest of the tiers just yet. What major settlements are intact and available to stand with us? Were I in your position, I would consider Lethian's Crossing. The settlement wasn't more than a commerce hub before the war, but it's grown quite a bit since the coming of Kyros. During the conquest, Tunon exploited the waterways to transport iron from the forges to the front lines of the war. Ever since then, refugee traffic and opportunities for trade have made the crossing more than it ever was or deserved to be. The settlers are caught in a constant battle with their protectors, the Bronze Brotherhood mercenary band, and Kyros' forces, who seek to reclaim their iron production. The forge-bound are the real treasure of the crossing. I'm loath to trust mages, but their iron weapons are second to none, and the reason why the Overlord's armies are so well provisioned. I only point out the crossing because, like Vendrian's Well, it seems poised for someone to intercede and end the conflict. We could restock our weapons and provisions, and maybe even garner some support from the locals. More importantly, it would seem that Zedenia, the forge-bound master, has been dispatched to the crossing under secret order. I know you both serve the same Archon, and I can't imagine that makes you any more the acquaintance than anybody else, but perhaps by your example she may see alternatives to Kyros' rule. If she turns, her guild will follow. Who are the Bronze Brotherhood? A band of wild mercenaries originally from the Free Cities. The voices of the Nerat hired them to claim and hold Lethian's Crossing during the war. It seems they took their work too seriously, because now they won't surrender the crossing to Kyros' garrison. They're a strange bunch, caring only for relics and strange traditions. I would watch yourself among their ilk. Don't the Forge-bound work for the disfavored? They are one of the mage guilds recognized under Kyros' rule, and for the time being their weapons have gone to disfavored soldiers. I don't know if you've ever heard whispers of this during the conquest, but the Forge-bound aren't exactly pleased with their role in the war. They consider themselves artists, not mere weaponsmiths to be farmed into exhaustion. If any mage guild seeks autonomy from Kyros, it would be them. The voices of Nerat fancies himself an artist, too. I venture he confuses war from the canvas twice as often as any forge-bound. Lethian's Crossing sounds like the best prospect. Stabilizing the area can help our cause. If you brought order to the crossing, it would go a long ways toward legitimizing your alliance and your intentions. You might not find everyone as quick to trust a Fatebinder in this part of the world. Until then, feel free to consider Ascension Hall your home base. If you gather forces to join the coalition, have them send a representative here. where we can discuss our plans for the future. As far as the Forge-bound go, use your best judgment. You'd find it easier to shot a spire down than steer a mage's loyalty. I doubt they'll help the likes of us if they can avoid it. The guilds have always been pretty comfortable under Kyros' rule. Alright, so now even this quest, Forging an Alliance, will take us over to Lethian's Crossing. And we'll go ahead and make that journey to the new location next time. Hey everyone, J Square John Jeremy here, and I want to thank you for watching. Check out another video from yours truly, or take a look at the playlist for this series. If you haven't done so already, click on the logo to subscribe and keep track of this channel. Until next time, so long, and take care.